really anything called statistical programming, at least not to my knowledge. So I had a friend who headed up a small affiliate of a known old Danish CRO who branched out in Malmö, Sweden. And he needed to hire a programmer and thought that I would fit that role. And this was on a contingency basis. So the first time he invited me to the office and basically went through what it meant to be a statistical programmer. And he basically went through everything from the data entry base to the protocol, the CRF, what comes out of the database, tables, figures, listings, and all this. So that was the first time I was introduced to statistical programming. I've had all the titles from junior programmer to senior programmer, lead programmer, AD, director today. In the early days, I basically did everything from randomization, data entry, IT administration stuff. So I started at this small CRO in Malmö and stayed there for about 5 years until I got laid off. But I immediately got a job in a small biotech company in Copenhagen, where I stayed for about 5 years. I also got laid off, and I immediately jumped to the big pharma company in Copenhagen, Novo Nordisk, where I stayed for about 9-ish years. And finally, I jumped back to the biotech company, which in those 9 years had started to ramp up again. So that's where I am today at Genmab. I am a computer scientist at heart, so that is actually programming. One of the key aspects of computer science are algorithms. So I've been always, when I program, I try to have an algorithmic aspect of what I'm doing. And that means try to make the code as perhaps not as fast as possible, but as lean and readable and also not redundant, so that I always can go in and change it. If you take Knut Morris Pratt, for instance, that's a famous algorithm. It's not so much understanding how long it takes, more the flow of the data and being able to adapt to various situations and changes in expectation. I think understanding the data, understanding the problem, that would be the biggest key for me. Basically, you can chalk it down or summarize it to understanding the problem. That took me quite some time to do. Once I did that, it went very much smoother afterwards. You're able to understand your stakeholders better and probe for clarifying questions. I would say the skill to plan out. And that doesn't only mean we start at day X and finish at day Y, but also who does what. You should also be able to plan out your code, how the data flows, and we're back to the algorithms again. Know that your stakeholders can come back on a very short notice or at the end of the delivery and say, this is good, this is what we asked for, but we actually changed our minds. Now that we see the results, we would like to probe a little bit in a different direction. Do you want to be the man that then comes back and says, yeah, but I need 2 additional weeks, or do you have planned out as far as possible and say, okay, we can do this in 1, 2, 3 days perhaps? The managers, both my manager and his manager, and all the cross-functional managers and basically all the peers are ready and available to spar with you at any given time, even though they have an extremely hectic and busy schedule. So everybody takes time out of their schedule to support their fellow workers. There is a strong mentoring capability here as well, and also, and this is perhaps not applicable to me, but also it's possible to do some cross-field jumping to other functions and try them out to see and learn new things. So all this is encouraged by the company. People management aspect of it, and learning new IT systems that track various one-to-ones and reviews and mid-year reviews and all this. I would say that is new. Other than that, I'm currently still relatively much operational and leading several programming efforts and also programming myself. So from that aspect, it will probably slow down in the future. But right now, today, I would say it's just that I've become a people manager. What I see happening is the standards become more mature and will be more widespread, and people across the board will across all companies will start to adhere to them even more heavily, and they will be more rigid. But I don't see any large revolution right now. At least there needs to be a complete shift of paradigm in computer hardware technology, in my opinion, and that's not going to happen in the next 10 years as I see it. I would say to a person that really wants to become a really good statistical programmer of the highest level, obviously needs to hone their programming skills. Most likely they should be able to handle multiple languages. And today we're not only talking about SAS, we're talking about Python and R, and those are relatively similar. So I would expect such a person be on top of, at least have a very strong working knowledge of these languages, plus be aware of the various programming paradigms such as procedural, functional, object-oriented programming, logical programming, mathematical programming, knowing when to implement what. You should have a working knowledge about the compound and the indication you're working on. Apart from that, communicational skills. Try to be a troubleshooter and take on various issues. When you've done a task, try to take a step back and see, was there something I could have done better? Try to evaluate the whole situation. Try to challenge yourself to see truly honestly if there was something you did bad, if somebody misunderstood you, or if you misunderstood somebody, how you can grow for each task you have done. Yeah, you should have some sort of risk mindset as well. You should know intuitively where you can cut corner if there is a minimum amount of time. You perhaps don't need to be perfect. You need to know, again, understand the problem and where your effort counts the most. And then I guess remember that you are not always right, but you're also not always wrong. And the final thing I would like to say is have fun, because it is a fun job if you make it interesting for yourself, if you challenge yourself and not just show up and go through the motions.